Hello, everyone. Welcome back. I have a day off, so I have some time. And what I want to talk about, obviously, is the new, the way that we're moving toward fascism, or we were, as quickly as we could. And Canada, I thought, and I do believe, actually, is leading the way. Beverly Ann McLaughlin, who used to be the top judge in Canada, said Canada had the most perfect system of justice in the world, and it is a model for the rest of the world. However, as she points out, there are 45,000 unheard cases in Canada, and I have 4 of them. The Crown, the government of Canada, when they get into trouble, they call themselves the Crown because legally speaking, or specifically speaking, Queen Elizabeth II is the head of the government of Canada. And when the government of Canada gets itself into trouble, it always says the Crown instead of the government. This has happened to me many times when I've been dealing with Human Resources Development Canada, which owes me a lot of money. And even though I've won my case against them in the Federal Court of Canada on 3 occasions, the government, which always says the Crown, will not comply with the court's decision. And it is not a court order because in Canada no judge can make an order. No judge anywhere can make an order against the government or the Crown. It is impossible to do. In 1981, we have a new constitution written by Pierre Elliott Trudeau, and before this date, he created a new court, which is a secret court with secret proceedings and secret documents that I may not. I've been there on 3 occasions. Yes, 3. And I have tried to get access to the court proceedings, and I am barred from it. No member of the public, self-represented in the courtroom, the Federal Court of Canada, is permitted to see it. It is a secret. Only a lawyer can see it and a judge, and Beverly Ann McLaughlin said it is a model for the world. That means that we are shut out of justice. And this system of justice is currently being copied by the Chinese government, Communist China, because they want to do the same thing Canada does. We talk a good line, but we don't walk it. We like to say to the world that we're the best country in the world, but we are not the best country in the world. And Pierre Elliott Trudeau did stab Quebec in the back in the middle of the night. And the man who said that is René Lévesque, who was the Premier of Quebec. And he refused to sign the new constitution written by Pierre Elliott Trudeau, also from Quebec. So Pierre Elliott Trudeau, René Lévesque left. Late at night, negotiations were going on, and René Lévesque said, I don't trust you. We're not signing this. So he left. Pierre Elliott Trudeau signed it in right of Quebec. But he is not the Premier of Quebec. He's the Prime Minister of Canada. There is a long-standing legal argument in Canada of whether or not our Constitution is actually legal. Supreme Court of Canada never wanted to have to deal with it. How do you tell the world that we have a Constitution that is not agreed to by everybody? But we have it. We don't actually. Legally speaking, it is not valid. In the province of Quebec, it is certainly not valid. The people of Quebec have always said that they will never sign it. It hands Canada over to Napoleonic Code, where the government, the Crown, is protected from the people, which is what we have right now. And that is a model for the rest of the world. I have won my cases. The Crown keeps saying, fuddle-duddle to you. That was an expression Pierre Elliott Trudeau used when he got caught using the F word so many times in Parliament. And now his son, Justin Trudeau, is doing the same thing. Justin Trudeau was accused by the U.S. government of stabbing America in the back. His father did the same thing to Quebec. The apple did not fall very far from the tree, did it? Now here I am watching on my computer people in the United States, largely Hollywood people. They really don't like the American government. Now, you know, I think those Hollywood people, they're used to having the president's ear. They're used to having it. They've strongly supported people like that. They wine them and dine them, you know. How many times has the former president, Barack Obama, been on the Colbert Report? And I think he was on Jon Stewart's show. But they've never invited Donald Trump. I'm sure he would go if they had invited him, but they hate him. Take a look at Robert De Niro. This is hate speech in the U.S. I don't know, in Canada, we have a law against hate speech. Strange as that may sound. But there's a woman in the United States named Ann Coulter. I don't know if anybody knows this woman, but you must, because she was very famous at one time. She got invited to come and speak in Canada. Canada invited her to come. before she landed in Toronto, Ontario, Canada, she was warned, some man warned her, that if she said things that he thought were inappropriate, she will be arrested and imprisoned. So when she landed at Pearson Airport and read the news, got warned by the government of Canada that she does not have freedom of speech in Canada. She may not, especially because in Canada they're called hate crimes. In the United States, you got actors in Hollywood that they're way over the top here. This is more than hate crime. There's a woman holding a severed head of Donald Trump, and that's not a hate crime. What do we call this now? What do we say? It was just a bad joke. Justin Trudeau, when he gets caught out, he says, "Oh, I was just joking. I was only making a joke." Well, nobody laughed at the time, but I'm not laughing at people like Robert De Niro or the other Christian guy who keeps saying he's got a big eagle that comes screaming into the screen there. Stephen Colbert. He's going by Colbert, which is actually the French expression of his name. And Stephen should actually be pronounced Stéphane, but whatever. Stéphane Colbert. And those are hate speeches. And Ann Coulter, I mean, in America, you're used to having freedom of speech. We don't have it here in Canada. There's a man who protests about gay pride parades, and he gets in them, and he passes out literature, and the Supreme Court of Canada has labeled him as a hate monger. And he has been warned that if he passes out this literature again, he's going to jail. So what's in the literature that he's passing out? It's scripture. He's quoting the Bible, which makes me wonder about the Supreme Court of Canada's decision. If by extrapolation, can we say that Canada has described some sections of the Holy Bible as hate speech? It's a question. I just didn't make a statement there. I'm asking a question because I'm befuddled by it. Anyway, let's go on, because it's a warning that I have to give, and I can't get over it, because for me, it's cost me a lot of money and a lot of my own time. I have won the decisions in the courtrooms, but the Crown refuses to accept the decisions of the judges of Canada. The judges of Canada, all of them, without exception, take their direction from the government, which likes to call itself the Crown. But I have kept these articles on my computer. I keep these newspaper articles where it says, the judges of Canada must do the will of Parliament. Justin Trudeau, when he starts the G7, which he likes to call the G6+1, and hey, you know what? You might as well call it the G-Sex +1. You know, this group sex thing, they always seem to have an odd number of people. Anybody notice that besides me? Anyway, let's move on. Justin Trudeau says Canada has rule of law. Well, if Canada has rule of law, why don't the decisions that I get in my favor from the judges of Canada, why doesn't the Crown accept them? Why doesn't the Crown do what the judge says they should do? The judge cannot make an order. The judge is an employee of the Crown. The judge does what the Crown says. That's it. But I was laughing about Robert De Niro, and he's all puffed up. You know, he's an actor. He's an actor. What's he ever done on the international stage? Has he done any of the things that Donald Trump has done? Did he meet Kim Jong-un? Can you imagine Robert De Niro negotiating with Kim Jong-un? He would reach into his back, pull out a gun. You fucking piece of shit. That would be Robert De Niro's style of negotiation. You know I'm right. What did Donald Trump say? He said, he's a good guy. He's representing his country. He's a funny guy. It's a serious situation we have, and he wants to negotiate. He says, it used to be that the negotiations, he would say something and there was silence on the other side. You can't negotiate like that. Now, Donald Trump, whether you like him or not, he's a good negotiator, and he loves his country. It makes me wonder about people like in Hollywood. Do they actually love their country? They are rich, they are famous, they are powerful because of America. Isn't that right? They wouldn't be able to do it anywhere else. They certainly could not replicate it here in Canada. Canada kind of has this, it likes to destroy its own. I'm going to give you 2 examples here about people who have been destroyed. Actually 3, because I'm the third one. The first one is a man named Louis Riel, who Justin Trudeau had a public service statement about, you know, the Prime Minister's office, he calls it, he makes a statement. Louis Riel was the leader of a territory west of the province of Ontario. It was very large. And he was elected, which is, anyway, the government of Canada wanted the territory. So they convinced him to have a seat in Parliament, the head of government. He ran for the election. He got voted in. He went to Parliament in Ontario. He signed the registry as a member of Parliament for the Assiniboine Territory. And then the government of Canada sent the military after him to arrest him. I'm not sure what the charge is. These things, you see, history is written by the winner, and it would be interesting to know. So he fled. He went back to the Assiniboine Territory. He was hunted down by the Canadian military and the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. He was arrested. He had a trial in the middle of the night in a small building like a shack. And if you don't think that justice was stacked against him, it certainly was. He was convicted and waited sentencing. Who do you think sentenced him? The Prime Minister of Canada, Sir John A. Macdonald, who hated Louis Riel, absolutely hated him. So what do you think the Prime Minister said? Prime Minister said, kill him. He actually, I think what he said was, kill that French bastard. Louis Riel was a Frenchman. And so he was. Now, I think the RCMP said he was hanged, but there is some discrepancy here. He may have been shot. He may have been hanged. His body, if you try to find it, since he's considered one of the founding members of Canada, I don't think it's marked anywhere. I would like to know. I'd like to go see it, in fact, if we could ever find out where it is. It's certainly not in Ottawa, Ontario. You won't find his bones resting there. And a friend of mine, he's now deceased, G.H.G. Stanley was his name, and he is the creator of the flag for Canada and was given this honor in 1965. Not only is he that, his father had the diary of Louis Riel. His father was a minister, a man of the cloth. Anyway, G.H.G., Mr. Stanley, he had it bequeathed to him, but it rightfully belonged to a First Nations tribe, even though Louis Riel himself represented the Métis. It's kind of a complicated thing, but let's just get back to it. Because what happened was, at the small university that I went to, I studied at and graduated from, I was a worker there in the summertime. I took relief from one of the departments, and Mr. Stanley came every day. He was corresponding with the government of Canada, plus this First Nations group in Saskatchewan, by the way. Here was the problem. Mr. Stanley holds Louis Riel's diary. I got to know him very well. Him and I became friends. He confided in me lots of interesting things about the history of Canada, which you don't find in any history book, but they are true. They are true. Louis Riel wrote in 5 languages. Believe it or not, he wrote in 5 languages. His diary is leather bound. Mr. Stanley had it. Mr. Stanley had his own offices. It was called the Louis Riel Project. So I asked Mr. Stanley, I said, this book, you have it personally? He says, it is mine to protect. The government of Canada wants it. I said, really? He said, they want it. The government of Canada assassinated him, but they want his diary. So we had this speculation like, well, what's in the diary? Obviously, he put entries into his diary right up until the moment of his death, probably. Somehow his diary got spirited away by someone before the military get hold of it and you know, use it for toilet paper. That would be so Canadian. Anyway, he has it, and I said, well, what's in it? He says, you know, Terry's my name, Terry Wheaton. He said, Terry, I can't tell you. I asked him if I could see it. He said, I will show it to you. I will not open it. Oh. He said, here's the problem. He said, I'm acting under the direction of the First Nations group in Saskatchewan. I have seen it myself. He says, I've read as much as some of the languages, I don't understand them. He said, some is in Old French, some is English, some is some Métis type of derivative of French and whatever else there is. I don't know. He said, I don't understand it all, really. He said, but there are people who can translate it, and it's a project that's going on to translate it. He said, however, the government of Canada is sticking by its guns. They want it. It is a piece of Canada's heritage, and it has to be in Ottawa. So he communicated with the First Nations group, and they said under no circumstances may they have it. So the government of Canada protested again. That's why he's always coming to see me, because I'm sending out his correspondence by Purelator Courier, which is owned by Canada Post. Anyway, it's their strike-breaking arm, if you want to know what it's for. Anyway, Purelator is doing all the communication. So they get this message from Mr. Stanley that this is it, you're not getting it. So they threatened Mr. Stanley. How do you think they threatened him? Well, he used to be the originator of the flag of Canada. Now the government of Canada said, no. You are sharing it now with this other one. This military college in Ontario, was partly them, partly yous. Sorry, I had to do the French accent thing. And so you don't get full responsibility for the flag. Well, Mr. Stanley was amazed. He was more than a little bit amazed. He became quite depressed over it. I know him well. He had a group of friends that had coffee every morning. I know all these boys. They're retired professors from the university. They're people of some distinction, in fact. And they felt very badly for Mr. Stanley losing this honor, which was given to him in 1965. So what did Mr. Stanley do? He hired a lawyer. And he had a court decision in his favor. Now, the Crown could just say fuddle-duddle to the court decision. Fuddle-duddle to that. Which is the F word, actually. They could have. But it became an embarrassment. The government of Canada falls back on its word, which it likes to do. And that's why the government of the United States says Justin Trudeau stabbed America in the back. You know what? I'll tell you, Canada has done this to me as well. It's horrible what happens in our country. It is absolutely horrible. And when you end up with a courtroom created by Pierre Trudeau, which is, they hold it in secret. It is a secret what happens here. You had in America, there was a former president named John Fitzgerald Kennedy, and he spoke out very strongly about secret societies, secret meetings, things that happen in secret. They are abhorrent to a free and democratic Canada. Thank you very much, everyone. We might see Hollywood take a little trip, fumble, and perhaps fall on the red carpet. Everybody have a good day. Toodly-doo. It's a pleasure to talk to you.